I am Reed, I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. So here's the thing. I've been investing close to $2,000 a month for the last 4 years, and I've built an investment portfolio of over $300,000, and I wanted to make this video to show you exactly how I did it. No fluff, no fake guru stuff, just the real numbers and the real decisions that got me here. This channel is all about building financial freedom, and I want to be as transparent as possible because I know how frustrating it is when people talk about money, but they never tell you how they actually got there. They just say stuff like, bro, I made $1 million trading crypto or whatever, and you are left there thinking, what am I doing wrong? I hate that. Let me tell you right now that I did not grow up with a silver spoon. I wish I did because that be sick. Honestly, who wouldn't want that? But I also did not grow up poor either. I was pretty much smack dab in the middle class. My parents worked hard. We had what we needed, but there was no trust fund waiting for me. No rich uncle, no magic inheritance, just regular middle class life. And I am still carrying $20,000 of student loan debt from college, by the way. So I am not sitting here pretending I have it all figured out. I am still paying for mistakes I made years ago. Everyone loves saying just invest or just save more, but nobody explains what that actually looks like when you are trying to balance rent and bills and taxes and student loans and still trying to have some social life outside of work. When I was 22 and fresh out of college, I had no idea what I was doing with money. None. I was making okay money for a new grad, but I was spending it all eating out every day, buying stuff I didn't need, went through a phase where I was financing things I couldn't afford just because I wanted to look like I had my life together. Spoiler alert, I did not have my life together. I was broke half the time, living paycheck to paycheck, wondering why I felt so stressed even though my income was going up. That was my rock bottom moment, honestly. Not like crazy debt rock bottom, but that feeling when you look at your bank account after getting paid and you realize you already spent most of it and you have no idea where it went. That feeling sucks. And I knew something had to change, so I started reading, I started learning. I started watching videos from people who actually knew what they were talking about. And slowly I started figuring out that the problem was how much I made. The problem was how I was managing what I already had. I'm going to give you advice that obviously you should go do your own research on, but I want you to see how you can apply this to your life and your situation. Because I truly believe we have a financial literacy crisis on our hands, especially for young professionals. Most people graduate college knowing how to do their job, but having absolutely no clue how to manage the money that comes with it. Nobody in high school or college teaches you how to build wealth. Nobody teaches you how retirement accounts work or how compounding interest works. You get the point here. That is another purpose of this channel too, to make money feel less complicated and to show that financial freedom is not some far-off dream, but actually achievable if you have the patience to let it all work. It is built through boring, consistent investments and good habits and making smart decisions over decades of time. Not overnight, not with one lucky trade, just slow, steady progress. So with that being said, I am going to walk you through the real numbers and show you exactly what investing $2,000 a month can get you. I've been investing right about $2,000 a month for the last 4 years, and honestly, the only reason I've been able to do that at 27 years old is because I made a plan early on in my life to chase a higher paying career and use that income wisely. I am going to be upfront here. To invest $2,000 a month like I am doing, you do need a decent salary. I don't want to discourage anyone from investing because investing $50 a month is infinitely better than investing $0 a month. But the only way I was able to achieve a $300,000 investment portfolio at 27 compared to maybe hitting it in my 30s is because I had a higher income to work with. That is just reality. I work in engineering in the oil and gas industry. And while the job can be stressful at times and demanding, I realized pretty fast that having a high income in your 20s gives you a massive opportunity as long as you don't waste it trying to look rich or don't waste it having an expensive lifestyle. A lot of people get a bigger paycheck and slowly trap themselves into needing that high income forever. They buy the nice car. They upgrade to the luxury apartment, they start eating at fancier restaurants, and suddenly their lifestyle eats up every dollar they make, no matter how much that is. I've seen it happen to friends, I've seen it happen to coworkers. It is scary how fast it creeps up on you, but I wanted to use this job that I have now as a tool instead. I wanted to take the money from a career that I like now and maybe that I don't necessarily want to do forever, and I wanted to funnel all that high salary into investments that could eventually buy back my time and my financial freedom. That was the mindset shift that changed everything for me. Instead of thinking about my job as my identity for the rest of my life, I started thinking about it as a vehicle, a means to an end, a way to generate capital that I could then put to work for me so that one day I wouldn't need the job anymore. That is the whole game right there. Now, some of why all watched my last video where I said making $135,000 a year honestly did not change my life in the way I thought it would. And I wasn't saying that $135,000 is bad money, because objectively it is great income and I am extremely grateful for it, especially at my age. But what I did say is that a lot of us grew up with this picture in our heads, that once you hit 6 figures, you basically made it. As a kid, I saw six figures and I automatically assumed that would buy you a nice house and support a family on one income and have a stay-at-home spouse if you wanted, and stack money on the side and take vacations and retire comfortably. I thought six figures was the American dream, but the reality in 2025 and 2026 is completely different than it was for our parents and grandparents. And a lot of young people are starting to realize that this might be a hot take. So drop a comment down below, let me know what you think, but I really do believe the traditional version of the American dream is mostly dead for the average person, especially in bigger cities. The idea that one income can comfortably support an entire household, that one income can buy you a nice home and build wealth and still have breathing room financially. It is just getting harder and harder for most people. Even those making above average incomes, housing prices exploded. Interest rates are high, groceries are expensive, everything just costs so much more. And at the same time, people are trying to compare themselves to lifestyles that were realistic 30 years ago under completely different economic conditions. So even with the six-figure salary now, it honestly feels like you have to choose between aggressive investing for your future, which is the route I chose, and that is how I started doing $2,000 a month and built up a $300,000 portfolio. Or you can stretch yourself thin trying to buy a house and maintain the image of living the traditional American dream. Location matters too, because making six figures in a small town is completely different than making six figures in a big city, but I think a lot of people in major cities know exactly what I am talking about. This sounds crazy to say out loud, but I truly think becoming a millionaire through investing is more realistic today than trying to recreate the old American dream lifestyle, where the family buys a big house and the man of the household supports everyone off one income, and you stay loyal to a company for 40 years and get a gold watch at retirement. The rules have changed now, whether people want to admit it or not. So instead of being bitter about it, I'd rather adapt to the world that we live in and use my income strategically to invest while I am in my 20s. That is the mindset you need. Adapt or get left behind. The reason I prioritized investing $2,000 a month in my 20s is because I realized early on that time is the biggest advantage I have working for me right now, and I did not want to waste that advantage. When you are young, there is a huge temptation to immediately inflate your lifestyle because you finally can. Once you are living on your own and getting that first paycheck, you can finance that brand new truck. You can move into that luxury solo apartment, you can buy designer clothes, all that stuff on the outside, looking in and on social media, it would look like you are winning. But I keep thinking how dangerous it is when your expenses rise as fast as your income, because then no matter how much money you make, you can still end up trapped needing every paycheck if you don't keep your expenses in check. That scared me mostly in my 20s, and it still does to this day. I looked around at older people who made great money for years but still seemed financially stressed. Still tied to a job they might not necessarily like, all because they did not create that gap between their income and their lifestyle. They let their spending eat up every raise, every bonus, every promotion just meant they upgraded their lifestyle and stayed in the same spot financially. That is the trap, and I refuse to fall into it. After that, I really realized that income alone does not create financial freedom. What creates financial freedom is a combination of income plus investing plus living below your means. So instead of trying to look rich now, I decided I'd rather build wealth quietly in the background while nobody else paying attention. Investing $2,000 a month in your 20s is not about getting rich overnight. It is about putting yourself in a completely different position 10, 15, 20 years from now. Every dollar that I invest today is buying more future freedom for me, more flexibility for me down the road, more peace of mind. It is buying me the ability to not have to work 40-hour weeks forever. Maybe not panic even if I lost my job, and maybe not stay stuck in a career purely because the paycheck is good. Once I understood compound interest and saw how powerful consistency becomes over time, it completely changed the way I viewed money. I stopped looking at money as something to immediately spend and started looking at it like a tool that I could use. Because if I can build a portfolio large enough while I am still young, eventually the investments are going to start compounding more than I am making on my paychecks. And that is going to be an awesome feeling. That is the goal, that is the finish line. When your money works harder than you do. And when I say I've been investing about $2,000 a month, I also want to be transparent with you guys about what that actually looks like, because it is not like I am just throwing $2,000 a month into random stocks trying to get rich quick. Most of my investment success has come from investing in the most powerful accounts and automating everything so I could stay consistent. I've been maxing out my 401k, investing into my HSA, consistently putting money into my brokerage account, and more recently I started maxing out my Roth IRA too, which is why I am always kicking myself for not starting that account earlier. The tax-free growth on a Roth IRA is insane. When you are young, I wish someone had grabbed me by the shoulders at 22 and yelled at me to open one. The reason I structured it like that is because I wanted a balance between tax advantages now and tax-free growth later, while still having some flexibility with a regular brokerage account that I can access before retirement age if I ever need to, or want to retire early and live off that portfolio. It is kind of a balancing act, but you gotta figure out what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all answer, but the key is just starting somewhere and being consistent. I am also not doing anything super complicated with my investing strategy because I genuinely think a lot of people overcomplicate this stuff, trying to beat the market, trying to beat the SP 500, trying to chase that next hot stock. My portfolio is honestly really simple. I mainly invest in a 3 ETF split between VOU and CHG and wanted to mix broad market exposure with more aggressive growth through tech and higher growth potential companies, plus dividend-paying companies that produce cash flow that I can reinvest. In my mind, it is a balance between growth now and future dividend income later. And obviously, there is a million different ways you could build your own portfolio. I am not a financial advisor, and I am not saying this is the perfect strategy for everyone. But for me, the biggest priority was building something simple enough that I can consistently stick to long term without constantly stressing about the market swings every single day. I think consistency and time in the market matter way more than trying to be the smartest investor in the room. So many people try to time the market or pick the next Amazon or Nvidia, and they end up losing money or getting stressed out and quitting. The boring path wins in the long run. It is not exciting. It does make for great content, but it works. Eventually, you do want to optimize your percentages because the difference of 1 or 2 or 3% gains on your returns over decades means a lot, but most people would be better off investing in the SP 500 than flip-flopping between individual stocks. It just takes the stress out of investing and allows you to focus on the discipline and increasing your income and other skills that are also important in your 20s. When I look at my long-term plans with investing, I honestly view my 20s as building the correct foundation of my life financially, and that is why I've been investing so much. Right now, I am in a position where I can work a high-paying engineering job and live relatively below my means and consistently invest about $2,000 a month. And I don't want to waste that situation because I know how fortunate I am. The money I invest at 27 has decades to grow, and that is why I am willing to sacrifice a little bit more. Now, while I am younger, I am not saying that everyone needs to invest this aggressively because everyone's situation is going to be different. I would recommend getting an emergency fund built up first and any high-interest debt paid off before you start investing heavily. That is step 1, step 0. Really, if you have credit card debt at 20% interest, you are not investing, you are hemorrhaging money. Pay that off first. Build your safety net, then start investing. But for me personally, I know I would regret wasting these years. If I spent all my income trying to flash my money and look successful, I'd rather be the guy who drives a normal car and has a secret portfolio growing in the background than the guy who looks rich but is actually broke. I don't necessarily plan on investing at this pace forever either. I think a lot of people hear financial content online and assume the goal is to live extremely frugal for the next 40 years and never spend any money and just obsess over net worth numbers. But that is not how I look at it. My plan is to use my 20s to build as much momentum as possible, because mathematically, this is when investing has the biggest impact, since you have the most time.